Here it is. Lots of people were asking for part 2 of this video, so I finally made it. Now, for those who have not seen the first one, there is a link in the description and there should be a link appearing in the corner somewhere up there. This video is about red flags, and so was the previous one, obviously. Red flags are warning signs that indicate unhealthy or manipulative behaviour. I said this in the first video that just because a person occasionally shows a red flag does not automatically mean that they should be avoided or they are a narcissist or sociopath or whatever. Truth be told, we all have them occasionally to some degree. The key difference is if they are a repeat event from a person, then it's an issue. This video will be a bit different from my first one. I will be showing red flags that I purposefully did not include in my first video. They were in the original script, but I took them out because I felt like I could not explain them properly at the time. I will be showing these red flags and explaining them, but I will also be explaining why I did not include them as well. This channel is not a drama channel. I am not here to call anyone out or anything. I am just here to give some guidance on some red flags that you might come across as a furry or non-furry and why it's an issue. Take note though that I am not a medical professional. So anyway, on with the video. Feigning distress to seek affirmation. Or another way of putting it, simulating hardship for the sake of sympathy. Oh hey, how are you doing? Hey, yeah, I'm okay, apart from the fact that I broke my leg. Now I can't stand up anymore in VRChat for a while. Oh, that sucks. How bad is it? I broke my tibia in 2 places. Wait, what? I thought you said your leg was broken. Oh, I'm in half body. I'm using a crutch. I heal really fast? I have lost count of the amount of times I have been told that I should have included this in my first video. It's very common in the furry fandom and the VRChat community, hell, even outside of those communities, and it can range from being quite benign to something extreme. Seeking validation is completely normal. Everyone does it. We all want to feel like our actions are valid and listened to. We want to fit in. We want the approval of our peers. It feels good to be praised for something we have done or worked on or have. The problem starts, though, when a person thinks that the only way they can get validation is by consistently making up random illnesses or distressing events because they think it's the only way people will listen to them. It's very insincere to depict yourself as troubled to play on another person's sympathies. Now, as a person on the receiving end of this, showing concern for others can be very draining and worrying if done repeatedly. Exploiting a friend's kindness just to feel better about yourself is not what friends, family, or loved ones do for one another. The big problem with this red flag, though, is how do you know when a person is telling the truth or not? In the end, if you are suffering, you should be open about it. And the relationships that you have built and worked on over the years will help you face turmoil because that's what good people do for one another. It's in their nature to show concern. You know that skit I just played? Some of that is based on reality. So that character did several things which made me suspect he was bullshitting right from the start. First off, he only told people about his issues, which sometimes were very personal, which I did not include, in front of like a crowd of strangers. Secondly, when called out on things that didn't make sense, he would change his story often, which is typical of what liars do. And sometimes he would give clarifications on things even when we didn't ask for them. To throw another spanner in the works on this topic, there sometimes can be people who make things up, but are also unwell. To get this point across, I'm going to share a little bit of information. I don't normally share personal stuff like this, but I'll share this tidbit. My own mother suffered from psychosis and a myriad of other issues. She took antipsychotics such as haloperidol and lithium to try and mitigate this. When I was a child, she would routinely accuse myself and my brothers of things we did not do, or she would imagine things that were wrong with her. Whilst growing up with this wasn't exactly pleasant, it did make me realise that there are often unseen or not understood reasons as to why people might display behaviours which are very negative, this being one of them. Now, for clarification, psychosis is a condition where a person loses contact with reality. It can range from hearing voices to seeing things to muddled thoughts based on delusions. It happens in people who have severe depression, a bit rarely though, sometimes bipolar disorder, and more notoriously schizophrenia. This is the reason why I didn't want to include it in my first video. I had a section dedicated to this, but I could not get it across properly without sounding like you should dismiss people who are ill in some way. The vast majority of people who are suffering and dealing with issues would rather deal with it in isolation or to a select few people, because they do not want attention that could make them look weak. This is especially true for men. The reason as to why people go down this route of feigning distress can happen for many reasons. A common one is they simply have low self-esteem or self-worth, and they think that they have nothing to offer to get people to listen to them. So instead, they just play on people's sympathies. The fact that they have personal problems, however, does not justify this behaviour because it negatively affects others. So if you suspect a person might be seeking validation by making up stories on how sick they are, give them the benefit of the doubt until it's obvious they are making things up. You don't know the full context of why they are saying these things all the time. At least give them a chance first. Once you can with confidence confirm what they are saying is untrue, then this is a red flag. I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10, but I'm going to tentatively give this a 8 out of 10 as well, because this can scale quite wildly. Trauma dumping. Hello? Hi, I've only known you for 5 seconds, but I feel like I can tell you everything that is wrong and troubling me right now. Whoa, wait, what? Huh? So it all started when I was a teenager. I was at school and I was bullied a lot. I was bullied outside of school as well, and by my family. In fact, they treated me really badly. Not just me, but my brothers too. My older brother had it really bad because... Whoa, hold on. I was just standing here sending a message to a friend, and you've come up to me and... A friend? A friend? Well, be thankful you have friends, because mine all died. What? So anyway, as I was saying, I had a recent encounter with a person who is basically Satan. They literally, the devil came into my house. You guys probably know what I'm talking about with this one when it comes to trauma dumping. It's basically the abrupt, non-consensual, often unprompted oversharing of traumatic events and stories about your life, and it's done in a one-sided manner which forces the other person to just stay there and listen. It often makes the listener feel like the person who is dumping on them is now their responsibility, and they are liable if they end up getting hurt. But that isn't really the case in reality. They often do not consent to this to begin with either. This is a delicate one. It's often seen as manipulative because the trauma dumper overshares at an inappropriate time, they don't leave space for the other person to talk, they are not interested in solutions or advice, and the person being dumped on is often left feeling helpless or drained, and this can really clash with a person's boundaries, especially if you dump something on them which is particularly and possibly triggering for the listener, such as, trigger warning, topics about suicide. Often, a person that has no filter and trauma dumps is likely struggling to deal with unprocessed trauma and just doesn't know a way to deal with it. But there are people out there who do it purely for attention. See my previous red flag in this video. The person doing this in most situations won't be doing it intentionally. The broad idea that people who trauma dump only do it because they want attention trivializes people who really need to vent and get things off their chest, and that is why I didn't include this in my first video. A person who is venting and not trauma dumping usually leaves a chance for both people to vent. They talk about solutions, it doesn't take up the entire conversation, and the venting person will often be humble and play up to any role that they played. Trauma dumping is not limited to conversations, however. It's all over the place in social media as well. Another super common one that has a very bad reputation is people who trauma dump at popular streamers during their streams. This is often seen as very rude, because the person doing the trauma dumping is trying to make the stream about themselves, rather than the actual content that the streamer is trying to provide. It often puts the streamer on the spot, and they often don't know what to say, and this can be completely derailing, and make everyone in the chat and the streamer very uncomfortable. They are not at fault for timing people out or banning people who do that. It's important to make a few things clear though. Talking about traumatic experiences is healthy and can be good for both listener and talker, but it can become a coping mechanism for people who have unprocessed issues. Trauma dumpers might think that just because they go up to an almost stranger and talk about traumatic experiences, and they seem to stop and listen, it doesn't mean that the recipient actually wants to be there in that situation. Most people will just freeze up and feel guilty if they ask them to stop, so they just won't bother. I'm going to rate this a 7 out of 10. It can be draining if done repeatedly, and this person needs to learn boundaries and learn to vent with friends in a consensual manner and maybe fix their problems, rather than dumping on strangers. Negging. Oh, it's you. You're that YouTuber. Hey. Oh, hi there. I really like your videos. Oh, thank you. You know, I think you will be a good fit for the group that I'm in. It mainly has like con chairmans and a bunch of popular furries in it. I think you would fit right in. I am not sure if I like that idea, to be honest. I never wanted to be part of a popular crowd. I just want to be with my friends. But I recognised you. You would be a great fit there, although a lot of it probably has to do with that cute avatar. Okay, thank you, I guess. From Wikipedia. Negging, to neg meaning a negative feedback, is an act of emotional manipulation whereby a person makes a deliberate, backhanded compliment or otherwise flirtatious remark to another person to undermine their confidence and attempt to engender them in a need for the manipulator's approval. So, negging. It can be done in a way with the intention to court someone or to try and make new friends. It's most often done by those who are part of the pick-up artist community, or more notoriously, they are just narcissists. They often target people who they think to be above their level of attractiveness or clout. Note, I do not think I have either of those things, I just use myself as an example because I've had it before. The idea of negging is to paint yourself as accomplished in some way by saying something like, I only date people who have a PhD and a 6-figure pay grade like myself. Or in my case, they said, you know, I think you will be a good fit for the group that I'm in. It mainly has like con chairmans and a bunch of popular furries in it. I think you would fit right in. Then, once they have sold themselves this way as something above the average value that people have, they then try and make the recipient self-conscious through a backhanded compliment, such as, for example, you have such a nice smile, it really lights up the room. It even draws attention away from your nose. Or something like, oh my, you're such a short woman, can I call you Mighty Mouse? But in my case, but I recognised you. You would be a great fit there, although a lot of it probably has to do with that cute avatar. Your value is based on who you are, not what a person thinks of you. Negging is often seen as a thing that only men do, which is just not true at all. All genders do it. You can tell it's negging from how the compliment makes you feel. Does it make you feel good, or does it make you feel self-conscious about something? If it's the latter, it's probably negging. It's manipulative and should be avoided. The reason why I didn't include this in my first video is because it can be done by those who are not necessarily trying to neg, but they are just very bad at giving compliments and have bad social skills. It's easy to see though if a person is like that rather than negging you, because more often than not, they won't try and big themselves up first and will often end up realizing their mistake if you ask them about a backhanded compliment they gave you. For example, imagine for a moment that the conversation went like this. "Oh, it's you. You're that YouTuber. Hey."
"Oh, hi there."
"I really like your videos."
"Oh, thank you."
"I mainly like your avatar."
"Oh, that's fine. You don't like my stuff beside my avatar?"
"Oh, no, that's not what I meant. I just mean that I got drawn in by your avatar."
"Oh, I see."
"Oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean that. I always put my foot in my mouth."
"It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's okay."
He didn't sell himself. He just made a compliment which didn't come across very well. And then when asked about it, he became anxious. That person wasn't negging. That was a person who just had bad social skills. And they should probably be given another chance. So there are steps to negging. First, they sell themselves as amazing. Secondly, they tell you that you have something that they admire. And then third, they then put you down on the thing which they admire about you. That is negging. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 on the red flag scale. Negging can be quite bad because it shows a lot about a person's manipulative traits. Just don't confuse it for those who have poor social skills. You will encounter this in all walks of life. Self-Aggrandizement and Usurping. This is something I see in the furry community all the damn time, and it frustrates the hell out of me when I see it. I'll give an example of something that's common. Imagine for a moment, so picture this. There's a new community in VRChat starting up, and it's formed by 4 people. Over time, it grows to something really special. It has hundreds of attendees, and they often make events for the wider public. And it's all possible thanks to the contribution of the people who formed it and any of the staff they have recruited along the way. Suddenly, one member of staff who has power starts to label events as his events. He starts to put his face on everything. He addresses the community as the one that he built. Over time, it changes the perceptions of people outside of the community, all those new to it, to think that this person is the leader, the one who did it all, the center of everything. Once they get that level of attention, they start publicly voicing their opinion like it's the opinion of the community as well. Well, they don't always do that, but that's still quite likely. This makes me really sad and a bit angry when I see this, because all that hard work is being pinned on the shoulders of one person when they are not the pillar of this community. I didn't include this in my first video because sometimes a specific person can become that pillar naturally. The thing is, when a person does this, they are often very humble about it and they are not showboaty. Imagine for a moment you are flung into a position where you are the face of a community that has hundreds or thousands of people in it. That sounds fucking terrifying. Most of the time, people do this because they want validation and attention, but they are handling it in a very bad way. Drawing attention to yourself at the expense of others is a pretty shit thing to do. I realise that there is a small amount of irony in that sentence though when I am making a video about it. That is not lost on me. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. It largely won't affect you if you encounter it, but it will affect those who are having their credit undermined. Leveling. Hey, I just want to have a quick word with you. Look, you are drunk all the time in VRChat, and it's really beginning to worry me. You drink in VRChat too? Well, sometimes, but I don't get blackout drunk all the time. So, you spend lots of time on here. Stop being so controlling. I'm not being controlling, I am showing concern. You are! You're telling me what to do. You're making me feel guilty. You're a manipulative arsehole. Leveling is a form of false equivalence. It's basically where a person equates two things that are not actually comparable in significant severity or nature. This is often done to try and downplay the importance or seriousness of one issue by comparing it to another. It's done to try and change the debate, and it's often followed by capriciousness and projecting, which is what I did in my skit. The end goal is often to minimize concerns or create confusion or maybe divert attention. The reason why I didn't include this in the first video is because it's easy to start pointing fingers at someone and just accuse them of stuff when they bring up legitimate concerns. You would think when you bring up concerns with someone that they would listen and take it in instead of becoming defensive. But some will get offended, some will freeze up, maybe they become sad. Leveling, though, is probably the worst response in my opinion because it's a big red flag. This happens way more often in romantic relationships than anything else, and it's often a sign that the person that's doing this has very low self-esteem and cannot take accountability. But it's also a trait, unfortunately, that narcissists have as well. As a side note, this is related to part of the narcissist's prayer. If you've not heard this before, I'm going to go over it now because I find it really interesting. That didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. Anyway, tangent aside, I'm going to rate this an 8 out of 10. If a person frequently uses leveling against you when you show concerns, it's a good sign that they will never take responsibility for their actions. I almost didn't make this video. Similar to the original one, I had just lingering doubts and thoughts, and I don't intend to make another one of these red flags videos ever again. I have a responsibility as a person with a platform to not spread hatred or bad information, and that was my main concern when making this video. Not concern for myself and how I appear, it's just concern for, like, if I give out bad advice, and that could end up getting people hurt. But in saying that, I accept that that might happen anyway. So I have a choice of either saying nothing or saying something, and giving people the chance of recognizing warning signs before they get hurt. But there's also this. There's always a lingering thought that perhaps advice like this is overly punishing to those who have developed toxic coping mechanisms when they themselves are human and suffering. But at the same time, that line of thinking, it's a bit of a trap. You can have sympathy for those who suffer because of their own actions, whilst distancing yourself from it. But in saying that, you have to differentiate between expressing empathy from a distance and enabling them, enabling harmful behaviours. And I see far too many people that just do the latter, feeding the beast, as it were. And you're not helping anyone by enabling bad behaviour, not yourself or your abuser. And I realise, though, what I've just said might come across as victim blaming to an extent. But that is just a massive misattribution of responsibility. Victims of abuse often find themselves in situations where their actions might seem like it's enabling an abuser, but those behaviours are actually responses to manipulation, coercion, or fear, or whatever. These actions are not the cause of abuse. The responsibility for the abuse lies solely with the abuser, not the victim. So, if you've ever thought to yourself that you've watched these videos and you think that you might have these red flags, and you come to the conclusion that it is the cause of your downfalls, you are not alone. There are many people out there that are similar, who are suffering due to it. And there are so many factors as to why a person develops this way. It could be low self-esteem, childhood experiences, social experiences, trauma, attachment issues, whatever, the list goes on. But you can either excuse your toxic behaviour by telling yourself that you have had these bad experiences and therefore it's justified, or you can overcome them and conclude that this isn't who you were meant to be. Healing also means taking responsibility for the role you have played in your own suffering.